Hey everybody, welcome to Teal Tinted Glasses, episode number 27, I think. Yeah, sounds about right. Tonight we're going to do some quarter pole reflections, obviously. We thank everyone who joined us, even though it's been a pretty crazy busy night for, you got the game and then our friends over at Teal Town where you just saw Kevin Lacey talk, and now he's going to come on and talk again. So that's pretty awesome.
Rick
So obviously
this piece.
Yeah, it's been a lot, so
I can't wait to go on Vegas Hockey Podcast after this, and then
oh man, they don't like the Sharks.
Yeah, not so much.
They apparently the Timo Meier hit was the Timo Meier thing was just something we do, according to them. So absolutely a stripper pole, puck guy. Welcome to the show. Thanks for watching. We're going to get right down to business here because I know you guys might be all hockeyed out by the end of it, and I just wouldn't blame you. So before we get into the Sharks quarter pole stuff, Radko Gudas gets 10 games for his attempted decapitation. What say you, Mr. Kevin Lacey? Welcome to the show. I guess I don't need to introduce you guys anymore. Everyone knows you.
Hey, I'm at Kevin Lacey 22. You know me from all kinds of stuff, especially tweeting 13 months ago about Radko Gudas. And now I guess I should pull up that tweet again saying, how many more times is this guy going to do stuff before he finally gets the ban hammer? Because holy cow, this guy gets away with everything. And 10 games, okay, I'm fine with it. I don't even think that what he did to Mathieu Perreault was the worst thing that he's done in his NHL career. But boy, it's good that finally, George Parros. Hey, I'm wearing your Violent Gents shirt, Mr. Parros. Oh wait,
nice.
I guess it's. But anyway, George Parros, thank you for finally sitting Radko Gudas to the box, the press box, because this guy just gets away. He hacks, slashes, slew foots, cross-checks people in the face, cross-checks people in the neck, apparently. And finally, maybe he'll learn. He probably won't, but maybe he'll learn.
Yeah, I thought I thought the suspension should have started at 15, but I think 10 was what most of us on the last show basically said. Yeah, probably 10. I mean, I was hoping for more, but I'm not disappointed that he did. I mean, I'm a little bit disappointed, but whatever. I mean, because it's the NHL, because it's the Department of Player Safety, and because they're just generally, you have to do something really, really awful. It seems to get more than 10 games unless you're Rafi Torres. I had to get that in there. Yeah, I feel like, that's just, it's consistently inconsistent with what they do. Yeah, and there's a CUDA game going on right now, and normally I would not go against the CUDA, but because of the schedule, because of the holidays, you just have to sometimes do what you got to do. Mr. Hockey Jerk, what was your thoughts on the suspension, and also welcome to the show?
Hello, it is nice to be here as always. The suspension, I agree with you. I thought it should have been longer when you consider that Gudas clearly was trying to reenact a scene from the French Revolution, but considering that, like you said, it is the NHL, and they are notorious for, bombing certain suspension calls, I think they got it right here. I think 10 games, it sends a message, when you consider, especially this season, it seems like the games are more spread apart. So that 10 games is really going to be a long time. And so I think the NHL for once got it right when it came to a suspension.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. So, I mean, that's the only really big league news I think that really happened since we recorded last. So I thought we'd just really kind of take a little bit of dive on the Sharks here because we're at the quarter pole of the season. Obviously, tonight's game was frustrating and many ways for many reasons, but I kind of want to look at the season as a whole from start to here, and I thought we would start with studs and duds, heroes and zeros, or as the Sharks put it, Logan Couture and Brent Burns. I think those are the obvious two studs and duds so far, so I kind of want to avoid, we'll talk about Brent Burns for sure, but I feel like that's the easy go-to. So who are your studs and duds not named Logan Couture or Mr. Brent Burns on the zero side? And I will start with you, Mr. Kevin Lacey.
Well, Couture and Donskoy are the easy picks for the studs, and I think that Martin Jones, except for today, but not that really it was Jones's fault, but
No.
Martin Jones on most nights has been a stud, and then you've got the rest of the forwards, and they're not in the stud category. I think Joe Thornton has been. I won't say he's been a dud because I think he gets a pass from the torn ACL and MCL. But at the same time, if he's still struggling as he was for weeks, he might be turning it now. But if he was struggling with his knee, he shouldn't be playing, especially at 38 years old. Have someone else. Danny O'Regan, for example, tonight. He's on the roster. I saw him out on the ice for one power play. Did he get any other ice time?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that's a fantastic question.
But I mean, so the studs: Couture, Donskoy, Jones, and some of the defensemen. We'll it's hard to quantify defensive efforts, but being the top defensive team in the league, it's not all Jones. But overall, if you're just point players out, those are the three I'd go with.
Mr. Hockey Jerk, what are your thoughts?
Well, in doing my rendition of studs and duds, I'm not going to mention the notable studs because it's obvious, like you said, Logan Couture, Jonas Donskoy, Martin Jones. Now, for me, stud, Chris Tierney, because, there were a lot of questions surrounding his qualifying offer, getting passed by guys like Ryan Carpenter, Danny O'Regan, and he's come and the offense hasn't increased too much, but he's still making an impact on any given night. He's looked really solid as the third line center, which I feel like we go back and forth on over the last 2 or 3 years. But in this most recent stretch of the season, the last however long the season's been going on, 6-7 weeks, he's looked really good. Another stud for me is Joachim Ryan. The three of us all said that, all three of us said that he's not going to be in the NHL, but he will be soon. And here he is, 16 games in, I believe, and he's probably been the Sharks' best defenseman, not named Mark-Edward Vlasic.
Yeah.
And for duds, Yannick Hansen, who literally brings zero to the table. Nikolai Goldobin probably would have given you a little more. I feel like at worst Goldobin gives you the same as Yannick Hansen, but yeah, Yannick Hansen, that's another story. So dud for Yannick Hansen. Dud for me as well is Dylan DeMello, because him finally winning the sixth defenseman spot, I was hoping that he would have held on to it for more than 2 games. Mm-hmm. And he didn't. And I think that's because, whether it's rust, whether it's mental, distraction, whatever, he has not looked like the solid second power play unit quarterback that we were all in love with 2 years ago. And so I think he's another dud for me. And then honorable mention in the stud category is Aaron Dell, because he comes in literally with no preparation time and looks as good, if not better, than Martin Jones on most nights.
His numbers, I mean, obviously a smaller sample size of games, but, I saw some conversation on Twitter. It's like, at what point do, I think it was, I can't remember who it was, but it basically, the premise of the conversation was that, like, when is there going to be a fan created goaltender controversy when you look at Dell's numbers consistently, like the consistent numbers he's put up at every level he's played at. I think he's like right now, I think he's somewhere in the 930 range for save percentage. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. One of my studs is absolutely Aaron Dell. I think that, every time he comes in, he gets, he's done pretty good. And I don't feel like it's his, the games that he's been in and lost, it's hard when you get no run support. Like the Sharks scoring woes are very apparent at this point. I mean, aside from tonight's game, they played 11, 11 or 12 games or had 11 or 12 goals to show in 6 games or something silly like that. Another guy who I think is a stud for me, definitely Joachim Ryan. I feel like I get really angry at Twitter right now Ian's angry at social media. What a shocker.
I was gonna say, how surprising is that?
But here's the thing, like this notion though that like Paul Martin is going to come in and that is what is ailing Brent Burns. Like, and I made like a kind of like a response tweet without like actually just tweeting at people and being a jerk, where I said, maybe the problem with Brent Burns is actually just Brent Burns, because I don't know why everyone thinks that like Paul Martin. I look at Paul Martin has done some good things beside Brent Burns, but I don't understand, like Paul Martin's not a special snowflake, unique, one of the kind defenseman. There are plenty of Paul Martins in the league. So this idea that Paul Martin's going to come back when Ryan's done fine, I don't think that any of this nonsense about Ryan, Burns doesn't trust Ryan enough or all this nonsense. It's nonsense. I mean, you look at the last, not this game that just passed, but the game before it, and Burns got just burned defensively on routine defensive plays.
Yeah.
That's not on Joachim Ryan. That's on Brent Burns. Like, I don't know. It baffles my mind how people can be like, oh, it's Joachim Ryan's fault that Brent Burns is not doing good this season. I don't know what game you're watching, but we're not watching the same games then.
Yeah.
If that's the case.
And
go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt you, but for the record, Kevin, 2 years ago when you and I were at a Barracuda game, what did you call Joachim Ryan?
Small Martin.
Right,
All he is Paul Martin with a 4 in front of his number. Like, it's the same player, just 10 years younger. Like, I love Joachim Ryan. I'm so glad you guys both called him a stud. How I missed that boat, I don't know how, because that's my guy. But yeah, Joachim Ryan's great and well said. Now, I want to ask you guys. I've been wanting to ask you guys this for a long time. What's the knock on Paul Martin? Because it's not just you guys. I hear a lot of people gripe about Paul Martin, and even though Paul Martin, he's slowing down at the elder stages of his career, but I don't think he's a bad defenseman. I don't know if as you said, he's not going to fix Brent Burns. Brent Burns has to fix himself. But what's the knock on Paul Martin here?
I feel like with Paul Martin, it's not my knock on Paul Martin isn't really against Paul Martin himself. It's just that we have Joachim Ryan at a fraction of the cost, who's done just fine in his spot. Like, in my opinion, you can get the same thing from either guy at this point.
Okay.
So that contract to me is now an albatross because you have it for another year when Joachim Ryan's clearly ready to go. Like, he can clearly hang in an NHL lineup.
Which is amazing. You'll get no argument out of me. So
I personally, I guess you could say I'm in the minority where I don't have a problem with Paul Martin. I generally think, despite his age and his declining foot speed, I still think he's an extremely smart player, and I still think he's a valuable player to the team. And this idea that, and this is nothing new, we've heard this for years now, but this idea that, the Sharks want to trade this guy, so automatically all 30 teams are going to be lining up to trade him. Like,
yes,
you can't just say, like, it drives me, and to not get too off track, it drives me insane when people are like, well, why didn't we trade that guy? It's because there's no guarantee that any other team wants him.
Yeah. And there's no one. Look we at the start of the season, I think we're all pretty smart hockey guys. None of us had Joachim Ryan on this team.
No.
Yep.
So, I mean,
because waiver situations made it Heed the obvious choice.
Right.
And Heed's on the team too, but.
Right. And if you look, obviously, like, I still think Joachim Ryan, like, when Paul Martin's out, like, he's going to be, Joachim Ryan's going to be the guy who goes down because lefty righty, you're probably not going to keep Ryan in the press box as your 7th D, or heaven forbid your 8th D if you keep him and DeMello sitting in the press box, or Heed at this point, which that's a puzzling thing. I do want to get to that, but I want to finish off my duds first. My number one dud this year is Peter DeBoer.
Yeah, I can see that.
I think Peter DeBoer is an okay coach. I never thought he was a great coach. I just don't feel like he is the right coach for this team where it's at today. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Obviously, some of his deployment of players is head scratching. I feel like it took way too long to put Timo Meier on the top line to see what he had there. I feel like, again, this what he's doing with Kevin Labanc, I don't understand. I don't understand how you go to Thornton and Pavelski to start the overtime tonight. Like, there's just so many head scratching decisions that Peter DeBoer makes that I look at, and I'm not saying I could go out there and coach an NHL team, but man, and the power play's been garbage, but okay. Don't you think that like Tim Heed would help on the power play a little more than Mark-Edouard Vlasic at this point? Like, I'm just, and I know I'm not the only person saying this, but like, there's just too many things, and those too many things are now just kind of adding up to me for the point where I don't know. It's hard. It is really hard to defend Peter DeBoer at this point with the Sharks.
And talking about the roster deployment, I think this does play in a hand of one of Hockey Jerk's duds, which is Jannik Hansen. Jannik Hansen's not a bad hockey player. In fact, he's one of the fastest skaters on the team, and he's a forechecking monster. But you wouldn't notice that because it seems like he gets deployed in the complete ineffective way under DeBoer's system. Like, those two just don't seem to work well together. So, I mean, I really think Hansen's a situation where he gets traded away and why didn't we get this Hansen? Why is he doing so much better for this other team? And it goes to what you're saying. DeBoer's been kind of a dud.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't like the way that he's deployed the lines. Like, I feel like the lines now, at least in the top six, are probably more where I would have put them. And again, I'm not saying that I could go out there and coach an NHL team tomorrow. I can't. Flat out, but I can still sit here and armchair coach this team, and and it makes you ask questions, especially when you have a team that's been so just starved for offense. I mean, it's funny to do that after when you have a game where the Sharks goal 4 goals. But like, I don't know. That's just my opinion. Like, that's my biggest dud. Other duds, I think, like, I think you guys really kind of hit the duds pretty well. Jannik Hansen, Dylan DeMello, and I think, obviously, and the big one obviously being Brent Burns. I don't know, man. But Peter DeBoer, to me, like, that's a problem with this team at this point.
Well, and I don't mean to jump in, but I want to mention something that you and I talked about a few weeks ago that kind of confirms the point you're just making, where, the first 5 games of the regular season, Kevin Labanc was the best player.
Yeah.
And then he makes one error and the Sharks scratch him. Like, Kevin Labanc, I mean, he's been in the NHL for a good while now, but how are you supposed to, get the player past their mistakes if you're punishing them? If you're saying, oh, you did this one bad thing, so you're in trouble. And it's like, well, what about all those good things that I did? And it's like, well, too bad. Sorry, you did one bad thing. Like, that's not the way you're supposed to coach, especially when you have so many young players. I mean, you think about, Labanc is a young guy. Daniel Regan's a young guy. Joachim Ryan is a young guy. And, you can't be like that with, your young guys, because then you see stuff with like Nikolai Goldobin and Marco Mueller where their confidence is just shot to death, and then they eventually leave the team because there's no faith in them.
Right. A couple things in the chat here. Obviously, a lot of people saying, like, a lot of people were leery of the Peter DeBoer when he was signed. And I was less leery because I wanted to give Peter DeBoer the benefit of the doubt, and here's why. Every team Peter DeBoer coached, and you could even argue this for the Sharks at this point a little bit too, got worse manpower-wise in the years that followed his first season. Florida definitely got a lot worse than they were. Like, I think we brought up, I can't remember who was like the first line for the Panthers that second year after they basically just hemorrhaged everybody. New Jersey obviously used Parise, you lose Kovalchuk. I mean, those are some pretty losses, big losses, especially when, for all the credit that Lou Lamoriello gets right now, I mean, he is a GM, at least in New Jersey, with all the ownership issues and stuff, that did not manage the salary cap system very well. Who would I replace Peter DeBoer with? I don't really even care at this point.
I would replace it. I jokingly said Gerard Gallant, but we're too late on that.
We're too late.
Would you replace him with Roy Sommer?
No. For real, who I would replace him with is Sheldon Keefe, the Toronto Marlies head coach. That's who I would pick.
Yeah, to me, I'm not all, you guys know me. I'm not a huge, let's get a retread in here. I'm all about trying to, give that other guy a boost. And I think at this point with the Sharks, like, to me, the window's passed, in my opinion. And I would rather bring in, like, I don't think that you have to go and wait for a guy like, I see Barry Trotz, for example, in the trial. I don't think you need to wait for a Trotz to possibly be fired. I think there's a lot of fresh thinking out there, and I think that more teams need to tap into that fresh thinking, regardless of how no, Jack Capuano does not have any business anywhere near this team. But yeah, to me, like, I'm not afraid to bring in the unknown guy. And you know what? Sheldon Keefe is a guy who I watched coach, with my own two eyes. So I feel like I feel like Sheldon Keefe's a guy that, I'm familiar with, because he was, before he moved on to be the Toronto Marlies head coach, he, of course, he and the Boy Wonder were the GM and coach of the Sioux Greyhounds. So I do have a little knowledge of Keefe, and I think that, he'd be an interesting guy for sure to come in and coach the to coach an NHL squad. I like when different people get chances. I like when, it doesn't always work out. Look, the Flyers right now are chanting for their coach to be fired, first time NHL coach. I'm not saying it works every time, but we've seen retreads that don't work every time either. So, I mean, I don't think there's an answer. Oof.
I just noticed, guys, since this is a game night, we talked about Joakim Ryan being a stud. He apparently only played 8 minutes and 17 seconds tonight. That's a little worrisome. Because I was looking up Danny O'Regan's. I said I only saw him for one power play. Danny O'Regan somehow actually had more ice time than Joakim Ryan did tonight.
I don't get it.
What's going on there?
Number one dud, Peter DeBoer. That's what's
Would we say that Peter DeBoer is bad and he should feel bad?
I am on that.
Ryan was minus
that train
2
now.
though.
Yeah, I look at Joakim Ryan's played what, 20 NHL games at this point, if that. Like,
sorry, what was that? I was looking at the chat.
Sorry, I was just saying, Joakim Ryan's played what, 20 NHL games at this point.
Yeah.
Like, there's going to be bumps.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Like, there's going to be bumps along the road here, but I mean, I still think like he's shown so much more than even I gave him credit for.
So that's the thing. Why doesn't Joakim Ryan get a chance to make up for those bumps? Like, okay, he's minus 2 in 8 minutes. Let's bench him the rest of the game. Like, I don't understand that philosophy. And that's a philosophy that is known about Peter DeBoer. That's why he has the reputation of not playing well with the younger kids. And when this is a team that is trying to promote from within, guys like O'Regan, Heed, Ryan, LeBanc, goes
Carpenter.
on and on. This is not the coach for this franchise.
Nope, and I completely agree. And that's the other thing too, is like, I know someone asked on, I think Zach was in this conversation too, and it was like, well, what's going on with Joakim Ryan getting benched? And I'm like, well, you can't embarrass your boss by putting $8 million on the bench. And unfortunately, I think that's a big part of it. Look, it's you look at who you can punish and who you can't punish. And to me, it's Peter DeBoer trying to send a message through Burns by benching his partner. Like, obviously, is that for sure? I can't say that's for sure, but that's, to me, like, when you look at, Burns's more rough games, it seems like Joakim Ryan seems to pay the price for it. And that's just a trend I've noticed. I can't confirm I can't confirm without a doubt that's the case, but that's how I've perceived it.
I buy into that perception. That's real. Yeah, I like that. I mean, I don't like it, but it makes sense.
Another thing on social media, because social media is my life, apparently. Actually, it's how I keep track of everything right now because I've been super busy. Guys, are the Sharks boring to watch? Because during the losing streak, that seemed like it was a very prominent thing. And are they boring to watch, or are they just boring to watch lose? What say you?
I could chime in. Hockey Jerk, I'm leaving the floor for you first.
You go first. I'm struggling with this.
Okay. Yes, they are. And I've actually been saying this since 2005. I believe that Joe Thornton has made the team boring to watch. There have been a couple years where they were very exciting to watch, but I think that the Sharks historically up until 2005 built on speed, energy, intensity, and Joe Thornton came in and slowed the game down to a complete halt. And we've been doing this for 12 years. And now that Joe Thornton is getting older and getting slower, and it's like, and no Patrick Marleau now, which was one of the only speed guys that we had. Yeah, they're boring to watch by speed and intensity perception, but also the fact that their offensive setup is repetitive. It's so structured and so repetitive, and there's no room for off the cusp play. So if the Sharks are relying on their defense to win every night, then we're the Minnesota Wild, and no one wants to watch the Sharks.
Yeah, I think the Sharks are boring because, like Kevin said, they're repetitive in pretty much everything they do. And I know, Ian, you and I went back and forth on this on Twitter where, the Sharks have this refusal to admit when something's not working.
Right.
We've seen it with Brent Burns. We've seen it with the Thornton and Pavelski line. We've seen it with Thomas Hertl at center, where there's a refusal to admit that the team is in the wrong. So they just stick it out and suffer whatever consequences happen. And so I think because of that philosophy, if you will, I think is what makes them boring because, nobody wants to see the Sharks go 0 for 6 on the power play with 2 shots on goal. Like, that's boring.
Right.
And it's, not to say that boring is a synonym for bad, but in this case it is.
I just have to, AJ corrected me in the chat. Joakim Ryan has played 19 games, not 20. Facts matter. I said 20 with like a question marky sound though. It was like 20?
I think 19 falls into the category of 20-ish.
There you go. So their facts do matter though. I agree. Facts matter. We got to be factual. Here's my thing with this. I think that one thing that the Sharks have done pretty decently on is actually without, overall, I think is their defensive play. Overall, I'm not saying individual, we've had individual problems. But, the Sharks do have the best penalty kill in the league right now. I don't know if that changed after tonight, but, the penalty kill for the most part has been good. My concern is with this team is it boring because I think it's boring. I think it is kind of boring. I think the Sharks have been boring to watch. There are games where I have just flat out fallen asleep through just because time zones and work and blah, 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 blah. But the thing is that this team may be the least talented team that the Sharks have ever iced. And I know that's hard to hear, but I feel like that's probably the case. And with the system that Peter DeBoer employs, the less talent that you have, then obviously it's going to get more boring. And I think that, and look, there's a lot of blame to go around for that. I mean, Kevin Labanc got off to a great start, has been kind of chilled since. Timo Meier, I think, has, 2 goals on the season.
Well, he should have 3, but they're giving it to Burns for now. For now, because we have to give Burns. We have to throw bones at Burns. Burns needs a bone. We have to throw a bone somewhere here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. I think that the Sharks can be boring to watch. Obviously, winning's always better. Winning makes everything better, and I've always said this: winning makes everything better. But overall, it isn't the greatest product on the ice. And I just, as much as I'm a big fan of a lot of these guys that have come up from the CUDA, we have to be honest here. I mean, there's that prospect pool. As much as I like certain guys, not really. It's not fantastic, and I think that's that's just, we have to be honest with each other here. As much as I love watching the CUDA guys, and I love watching the CUDA guys come up, but the overall talent level of our prospect pool isn't fantastic, and I think we have to deal with that. We have to admit that to ourselves, I think.
Yeah, the few boomer bust guys that we've drafted high in the draft, the Sharks have drafted high in the draft, have been busts, and the low round draft pick boomer bust guys have been boom. But the thing is that their booms aren't higher than maybe third line NHL player. That's there's no like one exciting guy. The Sharks don't have an Austin Matthews or Nikolai Ehlers even who can get you out of your seat.
Right. Yeah. No, I think
regularly anyway.
Yeah, and I mean I've been critical of the Sharks drafting many times. I don't think we need to go completely down that rabbit hole, but I just think that the product that you're seeing on the ice is due to the talent level being also iced at the same time, and then you have obviously weird coaching decisions to make it even worse, in my opinion. You put guys, like for a while you had like Timo Meier on the third line with, what was it, Tierney and I think Bodker. Like that's a tough go, man.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned earlier for all that's been documented about Timo Meier's struggles this year, he has looked good in the 3 games he's been with the Joe line.
And I don't think Timo Meier's been bad. I mean, he hasn't scored, and I get that, that's what everyone wants to see. He's a 9th overall pick. People want to see goals. I don't think his play has been bad, though.
Right.
A little predatory, maybe? Yes. Bad, no.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up, because you, of course, want to see goals with your first round picks. But Manny Malhotra was a 6th overall pick or something like that. And he was never known for being a goal scorer, but he was a damn good hockey player. And I think Timo Meier's kind of in that realm where it's like, he might get to 15 goals a season, but he should be a competitive guy that you dress every night at least.
I think so. Here's my question to you guys, just based on another thing, because I know I tweeted out something funny earlier just to kind of make people angry, and I reminded everyone that Rafi Torres was a 5th overall pick at one point in time. What did you think of the Perron thing tonight?
I think that David Perron needs to watch where he's skating. I think this is, he's had concussion history. It's not just with the Sharks, because we know about the Joe Thornton hit where Perron skated right into him. There was another situation, I think last season, even when he was on the Blues for the second go around, where he just ran into someone. He doesn't pick his head up. He's always just in la la land when he skates. I watched Perron skate right into Timo Meier. And what is Timo Meier supposed to do? Get knocked down?
Right.
Meier's standing there like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah. See, and here's and I get that argument too, and I kind of had an argument with this on Twitter. I mean, the thing that I didn't like was just that Meier just kind of just watched him. You know what I mean? It was just kind of the way he just had it. He was locked in, I feel like, and man, it's hard. It's just I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I am concerned that he's gonna get a game or two, just because he was just fine the other week. I mean, I don't completely disagree on the Perron thing. I mean, I get it. What are you supposed to do? Where are you supposed to go? But there's just something in the way that Timo's just in his body that I it bothered me. Just his body language bothered me.
My chat is reloading here. Sleepy Mofo said Perron embellishment. I don't think it wasn't embellishment that he got concussed tonight. You could see it in his eyes.
he just
but
skated into
I
the
think
wire.
that is why Perron is just skating around trying to initiate contact with absolutely nobody away from the play. I think he's trying to do look at me, I got knocked down. And the problem is he keeps putting himself into situations where he's getting concussions.
Jerk, what do you think?
I'll be honest, I did not see the hit, but if it's anything like what you guys have said and what has happened to David Perron in the past, it does sound like another one of those situations where, yes, he is probably really hurting, but there was probably a step or two that could have been taken to avoid said, pain.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I mean, of all people to be guilty of causing David Perron's injury, Timo Meier, who we all singled out as early as last year with the Barracuda when he was regularly making runs at guys, especially in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, that's the thing I didn't like, was that, like, I did not like the body language of Timo Meier as Perron came towards him. Like, I get the argument that, okay, fine, he doesn't have the puck, so I mean, do you have to move? I get that's an argument for another day, I think. But it's just I didn't like the body language at all. Like, Timo Meier, like, to me, like, yeah, Perron probably put himself in a bad place, and I can understand that perception. But at the same time, I just feel like, Timo was just all too ready to destroy him there, based on his body language. That's just my take.
And that's a fair assessment when, like I said, you consider the amount of running around he was doing last year, Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think Perron looked at him and go, oh, here's my target. Because, I mean, I think Vlasic was the other one who was just standing there in position, and he could have run into Vlasic, but instead he skated right into Meier. And I think he targeted it, trying to, as Sleepy Mofo said, embellish a call, except for that Meier dropped him. But again, I did not see Meier throw a cheap shot. I just look at him like, well, I'm going to knock you down if you skate at me.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely a penalty. I mean, interference was the right penalty.
Yeah. Oh, it was. But I mean, Perron needs to play smarter and keep his head up, and either watch where he's skating or not be a douche on the ice trying to draw penalties away from the play like that.
So with this now kind of story that's being created between Perron and Meier, can we rule out David Perron as the potential key to the Joe Thornton, Joe Pavelski Lions issues?
No, because the Sharks always trade for players like that at the end. So Perron will be on the Sharks.
You heard it here first.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So I guess, at the quarter pole, are the Sharks where you expected them to be at this point?
Yes. I expected them to be good, but not great, and not crappy either. They're right in the middle. They could make the playoffs. They could also be a lottery team. They're right exactly where I had them.
Mr. Lacey?
They're literally where I had them, because I said they'd finish 9th in the West, and currently they are 9th in the West. There are 8 teams ahead of them in the standings, and they're 5th in the division. And so, yeah, I suppose as far as the end game goes, they're right there. They're in the mix. The spread of points in the standings is just everyone has the same amount of points unless you're the Coyotes. So
right.
So I mean, and the Oilers are a little bit back, but I mean, then there's a 10-team jam with a 4-point spread or something like that. It's something insane.
Basically, so. Yeah, and the Sharks, like, I'm kind of agreement. Like, this was kind of the Sharks team. I thought this was a team that was going to struggle a little bit. They weren't going to be like your cream of the crop team. I didn't think they were going to be Arizona either. So the middle of the pack team that they've been, maybe they're even a little bit better than I expected, because I think another thing to keep in mind is when you look at the standings, especially like when you were looking in the standings last week, was the Sharks had the fewest games played in the league. So a lot of these teams that were ahead of them had three, even 4 games in hand on them. So I think
still
the
do
Sharks
actually. Now that I look at it.
Yeah. So I think that the Sharks, they're doing okay. Like they're not great. But I didn't think they were going to be this, this juggernaut. And so I feel like they're pretty much where I expected them to be. I just wish they were a little more interesting to watch.
Well said. Well said.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, just an update for those of you watching, please subscribe.
Absolutely.
The Barracuda are playing the Reign right now. It's at first intermission. There is no score. The Barracuda did not get their first shot on goal until 12 minutes in the game, but they've kind of caught up. It's 10-6 shots. Parker Gahagen, Ian, you're the one who tipped me on that. Parker Gahagen is making his pro debut in net. Troy Grosnick is a scratch.
Wow.
So is there something going on there besides just Bebo getting, outplaying him?
Maybe Bebo's outplaying him for a reason. Oh, man, that's scary. I don't want to think about that.
Maybe they're just being extremely careful when it comes to managing his ice time, especially, if you recall the series against Grand Rapids, he somehow ended up being the Barracuda's best player, despite the fact that he was totally 100% exhausted by that point.
Yeah. And you know what? Now I think about it, though, Trey Grosnick gets crashed into an awful lot, it seems like.
He does.
I wonder if there's an injury from one of those collisions.
That's what I'm wondering, too. Like, I don't think he hasn't really, in my opinion, he hasn't really been Troy Grosnick all season, to be completely honest. Like, he's been good, but not... and I don't think it's just that Bebo's been really good too. I think Bebo's been locked in, but I don't feel like, I don't feel like he's been good, but I don't know if it's just like Grosnick just he seems off to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Cheryl said in the chat too, new dad scratch. We generally see them push the kid out and then he's right back on the ice, but maybe there is something there. I don't have any kids, so I'm only speculating, but I don't think being a new parent is necessarily the easiest job, and maybe it's weighing on him.
It's not. I can tell you from experience it's not. But I don't know. Like, I feel like for hockey players, again, obviously Gahagen coming in and getting a start. Like, obviously we knew he was going to get some game time, but with Grosnick though, I feel like, there wasn't really any talk of anything being wrong. Like, if maybe like I could see a player taking some time off a little bit more if like there was a problem with the birth.
Right.
Like, and I don't want to speculate anything. I'm not trying to create rumors or anything like that. I just feel like there wasn't anything like that said, and you feel like, that kind of stuff would probably get out.
See, I disagree. I don't think that kind of stuff would get out.
It especially not at the AHL level, where you will literally see guys completely be removed from the roster and no announcement, nothing.
Well, that's true.
Hello,
I just feel like
hello, Alex Shaneborn.
I don't know. I feel like, for an AHL team, like the Barracuda has some people that do follow really, really close. You know what I mean? Like they do. I think Gackle does a good job. I think obviously Zach does a good job. Now, I'm not saying that they would spill that kind of information, but I feel like we'd have a hint of something.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, again, I'm not trying to say that like Paul Gackle and Zach Devine are TMZ-esque reporters. I don't know. To me, it feels like there's just something not right with Grosnick, and I think it wasn't right before baby.
It could very well be. Could very well be.
But again, speculation.
Yeah. No idea. And that's the bummer about, the AHL coverage, news coverage is ever increasing. You've got Paul, you've got Zach, you've got Patrick Williams, who I love on Twitter. Definitely follow Patrick Williams, folks. But still, the minor league-ism of it is not all the information is posted. And sometimes because you're dealing with prospects, teams don't want that info out there.
Sure.
So
TLMZ.
TLMZ. yeah. So we, as you said, we can only speculate. We have no idea if there's an injury, if there's something going on as a dad for Grosnick, whatnot. I'm guessing it's an injury though.
I think something's nagging him. I wanted to go back here because AJ said something and I wanted to get back to it and I just missed it here. And he basically just said, the Sharks are not great in a bad division. Basically, either make a trade or fire sale. And I don't think it's that desperate right now. Like, I don't think now is the time where you would pull the parachute or load up either. Like, I don't know. I feel like you kind of just let this ride, right? They're not in, they're not out.
Yeah, I would think so. You don't, especially because say you give up assets for something that you think will help and then it totally blows up in your face.
Wait, Yannick Hansen?
It's almost like you read my mind.
Like, I don't know. I'm just not there yet. Like, I know, like, I don't know. I don't feel like there's a move that the Sharks can make at this point in the season that's going to drastically help them. And I don't think that a fire sale would be all that successful at this point in the year.
Here's where Doug Wilson, I don't think gets enough credit in that Doug Wilson is very good about if there's a player that he wants, he'll go out in the end of November, here we are, and get that player.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even like Mike Brown, obviously fourth line player, penalty killer, blah, 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 physical player. But he didn't go out and get Mike Brown at the trade deadline.
No, that's true.
Why would you waste a fourth round pick on a player for, essentially like 13 games or whatever? He went and got Mike Brown in November. So yeah, Doug Wilson does make trades at the deadline and whatnot, but he's very good about saying this is a need that we have. Let's do it now instead of waiting later and try and get the most out of this asset. So if the Sharks make a move to try and add, it's going to happen soon. But I wouldn't mind it being the flip side of, because I do think the Sharks should sell some pieces off.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I wouldn't mind that happening now.
I just but it just to me, I just wonder if the player that's going to help things is out there right now. I think that's my question. Like, unless if you're, I know Vander Kane gets brought up a lot, and I could see that. Like, that makes a lot of sense to me because the Sabres are bad and they should feel bad.
I thought you were going to say because the Sharks acquire broken things.
And the Sharks do love the reclamation projects. Boy, do they love the reclamation projects.
See, I'm on the Evander Kane bus wholeheartedly. I mean, he's a left winger, which the Sharks need.
Yep.
He is a pure shooter, which the Sharks need. He's turned his act around the last 2 seasons. I mean, without getting too ahead of ourselves here, I almost think he's young too. I should include. I think he is the perfect player. For how much is talked about. He'll help us now and in the future. I think he is that player.
Yeah. AJ's saying, the player that will help things now is not out there, but make the future great. I don't know.
The other side, let's say the Sharks are hypothetically trading for Evander Kane.
Sure.
There's no way that, a LeBanc or an O'Regan or a Sorensen doesn't go back the other way.
Or a Heat or a Ryan.
You have to make it worth it for Buffalo. Or a draft pick.
Okay. I just want to quickly touch on the Barracuda here because we were kind of on there and then I dragged us back off again and that's my bad. And then we will let these people go home. And then I think me and AJ are having an epic on it.
No, Vince, Tyson Nash is not coming to San Jose. Oh, you mean another?
Yeah, you mean Rick Nash, who at the beginning of the season had 1 goal on like 30
I'd
shots.
honestly rather have Riley Nash, but that's me.
So the weekend split with the Reign. Saturday they go they win Saturday they won 1-0 against the Ontario Reign, and then they lost on Sunday 4-1. I did not catch the 1-0 game. I had previous commitments. I did watch the 4-1 loss though. Not really a great result against the team that kind of sucks this year, to be completely honest. I mean, the Ontario Reign are not the Ontario Reign of last year or the year before.
Ontario, I've spoken the praises the last 2 years about their defense, and they no longer have Curtis McDermott or Vincent Laverde, who was their top pair. I mean, look at the Barracuda, who have struggled without Joachim Ryan and Tim Heed. It's kind of the same thing for Ontario.
Yeah, Jerk, what did you think of these games? Because I just, to me, like, I just thought like the Barracuda, this was a really big opportunity to really, for the Barracuda to put some points away. And I think that, only getting 2 of the 4 points, I think that's just really, it's an unacceptable result.
Yeah, and I mean the first game against Ontario, the 1-0 win, I mean, I feel like we've been using this word so much the last hour, but it was kind of boring. But the Barracuda, they showed up. They showed up, they did their job, they got the win in regulation, and they moved on. And to kind of jump forward a little bit, the game this past Wednesday against the Rampage, very high scoring, but again, showed up, got the job done, and moved on. But that game against Ontario that was on last Sunday, I'm with you there. Like, this is not your older brother's Ontario Reign, who was the Pacific Division champion 2 years ago. This Ontario Reign team is bad, like you said. And if you're only going to score 1 goal, at least do it like the first game where you win 1-0. But to let in 4 goals against a really crappy team, and no less, memory is kind of fuzzy on this, but I believe it was Bebo who got the shutout and Grosnick who let in the 4 goals. Am I wrong?
You are not wrong.
So, you want your starting goalie, you want the best goalie in the AHL to let in less than 4 goals. And so I think, like you said, the Barracuda really squandered an opportunity here to, put some separation in between them, especially when you consider that they're about where the Sharks are. They're right in the middle of the Pacific Division,
Yeah,
so I think
they were at the bottom of it when those games were played. They were dead last in the division.
Ooh.
Right. And I think the Barracuda, too, I think they're still in a good spot. They're hopefully, Rourke Chartier's injury is not as serious as it appears, although I fear that it is. And, Joachim Ryan is probably not going to be back for a while, but at some point I think Danny O'Regan will make his way back to the Barracuda. And so if they can get all these major pieces clicking, then I think they can start to right the ship.
Tell me about Jeremy Waugh.
Oh my God, Jeremy Waugh is a changed man. Jesus. Well, there was so much that was talked about him, last years, and Kevin and I have had numerous discussions at Barracuda games about Jeremy Waugh. He, can't skate. He's got the piano on his back. He's not paying attention to anything that's happening at all. And, this weekend, I don't know what he did, but that first game against Ontario, he, broke up a 2-on-1 for the Reign, and then flipped around, come the other way, and he's in on an odd man rush for the Barracuda. Same thing in the 4-1 loss. He was extremely smart defensively. He was really good with his breakout passes and his general puck possession. And then the game against San Antonio, he scored a goal on the power play, and it was, he slid into that spot, the Alex Ovechkin spot, if you will, right by the faceoff dot, and just buried it. And so it's nice to see him start to, develop his game a little more and, kind of get more comfortable playing the way he did in the queue. And correct me if I'm wrong, was the 1-0 victory against Ontario, was Jeremy Waugh in on that goal? I feel like he was.
I don't know for sure, but I believe it's possible.
Because I recall, because he had the goal one of the 5 goals against the Rampage, and I believe he had another goal, or at least an assist.
He had 2 assists in the game. He had 3 points.
Yeah, so there you go. He's, for as much criticism as we've lumped on him, even in the last 2 weeks, he's really turned things around, especially, like I said, with his offensive upside and his really smart defensive play as well.
All right. And the Barracuda also made a PTO signing, which casts more doubt on Rourke Chartier's health, unfortunately. Obviously, Rourke Chartier, I mean, it's concerning because, Chartier did have some injury problems in junior. Missed almost a whole season, actually. So they brought in, they doubled down on their WA quota and brought in Marco WA. Marco WA, I mean, not much to say about him. I mean, tweener, ECHL, AHL tweener at this point. Had a decent career in junior. Put up some points in junior, but nothing really. I think his best season was with the Condors in 15-16, where he had 20 points. Had 16 points last year in the ECHL. So I mean, it's an interesting signing, especially when you consider the glut of forwards that they've got the glut of centers, at least, that the Barracuda seem to have. But what are you going to do, right? You've got guys like O'Regan up, and doesn't look like there's any sign of O'Regan coming back down. It seems like Kevin LeBanc's going to either waste away in the press box or get in once every 3 games. Like, there's no help coming for the Barracuda. They're not going to put Carpenter on waivers. They're not going to put Gaudreau on waivers. There's no help coming.
The Marco Waugh signing, or PTO signing, I don't mind this. It's just that I've heard it being related to the Rourke Chartier injury, and I don't think those 2 players are complementary to each other at all. I'm looking at Marco Waugh because I don't think there's anybody the Sharks could, as you say, bring up that could fill Chartier's spot. Marco Waugh, I saw him play for Bakersfield 2 years ago, a few times against the Barracuda, and I thought he was okay. I think he's a good replacement for Colby McCauley. Colby McCauley was a player that I think I know Zach and I really liked him last year when the Sharks first signed him, and I thought he was pretty lousy in training camp, and I have not been impressed with him in the AHL this year. Now he's in the ECHL, and he's got pretty pedestrian stats. I think the Sharks are kind of ruling him out. So Waugh, I think, kind of slides more in there. He's a guy who's willing to be physical. He doesn't really have a whole lot of offensive talent, but he's a guy who can at least make an impact on the forecheck, whereas McCauley wasn't even doing that at this point. So I'm fine with giving him a try, but yeah, it sucks losing Chartier, especially with the Barracuda having struggles at both ends of the ice.
And sorry to interrupt the conversation, but speaking of Jeremy Waugh, the Barracuda almost took the lead on a Jeremy Waugh shot.
Ooh, there you go.
So maybe he's really feeling it.
Maybe, you know what? Look, I mean, I'm happy to see that he's finally starting to do something, because this is a prospect. This one I liked when they traded for Waugh. I was in the camp of liked to take Jeremy Waugh. I liked it. I thought that Waugh was going to be in the top, like that bottom 10, and I think Boston screwed it all up. But I had Jeremy Waugh kind of in that 20 to 30 range. So I was really excited when they moved up to get him. Obviously, the injuries have been problematic, but I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed that pick when it happened. So I'm kind of happy that it's at least, he's starting to show flashes of the player he was in junior.
Yeah. And to also further what I was saying earlier, the 1 goal in the 1-0 win against Ontario was also a Jeremy Waugh goal. So he's got, by my quick math, 4 points in his last 3 games going into tonight.
Yep.
Cool. So
cool.
There you go.
Good
there you
stuff.
have it. All right, guys. Obviously, the Barracuda are playing tonight. They're going to play on Sunday. Apparently, your dog needs a ticket but can't have a bobblehead. How do you feel about that? I just saw that in the chat, and I thought that was just amazing. All right, so your dog cannot have a bobblehead, but they can come if they have a ticket. I'm curious to see how that goes. I'm going to go finish watching the Barracuda game. Other than that, though, guys, I appreciate you guys coming on and watching us and taking part in the chat. Obviously, after a long game, and then our friends over at Teal Town coming on, and then, sticking around to listen to us ramble about nonsensical stuff for an hour. I mean, it's super appreciated all the time. Please subscribe. Please tell 2 friends. Please make people love us. Make people love us. How could you not love these faces and whatever picture Hockey Jerk decides to use today? Final thoughts. I'm going to go with you, Jerk. Final thoughts.
Well, final thought number 1 is for the next Teal Tinted Glasses, I will be taking suggestions as to what picture to use for the avatar. Evgeny Malkin is injured, so the Penguins will not be winning their 3rd Stanley Cup if the playoffs started today.
Are they still your favorite team, though, with Malkin injured?
It's hard. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they can put Malkin in a suit on the bench, or I don't know. And I don't know.
Well, the NHL teams all have 9 coaches on the bench now, anyway. So what's one more? Throw Malkin on the bench in a suit.
There you go.
That's true. And yeah, I don't know. I don't feel like, besides, Radko Gudas getting suspended, I don't really think anything exciting sort of came down. I am excited to see all of the doggies on Sunday.
I would be petting all the dogs. I don't know if I'd be watching the game or petting dogs. I think I'd be petting dogs.
Leanne Thornhill says my avatar for next time should be Jeremy Watt. I think that's what it's gonna be.
Like it.
I hope to pet a dog on Sunday. And if I'm lucky enough to find a dog who likes me, maybe they can have my bobblehead. And you can follow me on Twitter at hockey_jerk. It's the same as always. I've kind of had a low profile the last week, but that's because, life is crazy. I hope to get back to the screaming and fact-checking and general goofiness that you all enjoy. Back to you.
Mr. Kevin Lacey, what are your final thoughts?
Okay, so I'm at Kevin Lacey 22. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. I'm trying to pull something up I just remembered right now. But in the meantime, Eli Tolvanen, this must be said, a player that, I think we all thought the Sharks should have taken over Josh Norris in the draft. Eli Tolvanen has tied the KHL record for most goals in a season by an 18-year-old. He tied Evgeny Kuznetsov, and it's only November 24th. So you want to talk about offensive prospects? Yikes!
Are you saying we could have had?
Yes. Now here's what I want to actually share. Nicole Sorcy, she's you should follow her. She's awesome. She's an AHL photographer. She snapped this, I believe, at a Cleveland Monsters game a couple weeks ago. I just thought this was great. Some fans making fun of the referees with their missed call, and I love this photo so much. So if you're listening on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, and all the other podcatchers, you can follow me at Kevin Lacey 22. I've retweeted this photo, or heck, you can just go to Nicole Sorce, SORCE, on Twitter and like it yourself on hers. So anyway, thanks for having me on, guys.
Having you on, it's your show too. Jeez Louise. Okay. My name is Ian Reed. You can find me at Ian Blogs Hockey. Obviously, I've been a little more quiet lately. I just started a new job working full-time. Need sleep, sucks, all the nonsense. But again, really happy you guys came on to watch the show today. And we look forward to doing this again, hoping Thursday. So stay tuned. Other than that, tell 2 friends, make people love us. And who said it? I think it was Sleepy asked, or was it Vince? Someone asked if we could get 120 subscribers by the end of the month. And I like that challenge. So make it happen, people. Aside from that, thanks, guys. Have a good night.